Boom. Episode 17 of Hirefire with Mr. Frank Salas, and some even call you Mr. Cape Town now. now that you officially live there, Frank. We just had a little short conversation, but first things first. How are you doing? How's the move to beautiful Cape Town?
It's cool. It's my first time here in Cape Town. It's now my 5th continent that I've been living on. I've been traveling the world full time for the last 8 years, and I haven't experienced a winter since 2015. So it's a cool experience, and it's just a lovely life that I'm blessed to live.
I love it. It's funny you say that because I just experienced my first winter visiting Marcos Rosinger, who you're familiar with, in Argentina, and I timed it so bad because I want to go see Argentina, but then I went in the winter, which is everywhere else in the northern hemisphere, right? It's the summer, but it was amazing just seeing it the winter. Like if you're gonna go through a winter, go to the best place in the world, and Argentina is one of them. I think a lot of my audience does know about you, but there's many people that have never heard about you, and they don't know who you are, right? I just made a post about it. I'm like, this guy's like my indirect hero in the space because I remember hearing about you. Obviously, we indirectly worked together in a sense for a long time. But you mentioned you haven't experienced a winter in 2015. Well, take us back. Take us back. How did you get into the space? How did you get into doing what you're doing now, traveling all over the world? I remember when you were getting on Zoom calls with Joel and Marcos back in 2018 and 2019. Every time they got on the call with you, you were in a different place in the world. And I was like, how's that possible? So how did we get here, Frank?
I've been outsourcing and working with people in emerging markets since my first business in 2008. I've always had them in my businesses. But in 2015, I was in Austin, Texas, the last city that I lived in full time. And I was selling real estate there. And I was scaling my residential real estate practice by working with people overseas. And I just realized that I like the travel life. Like I remember going on short trips and saying, why do I have to go back home? Why do I have to do that? Like who says I have to do that? And so I just stopped doing it. And I designed my system, my lifestyle around that. And I haven't looked back. For me, I asked myself one question, and it was, if I were to live the rest of my life only having, 9 or 10 weeks of vacation, would some people get 2 or maybe even 6, and I was at 10 weeks of vacation, 12 weeks of vacation a year. I didn't think that was enough. Yeah. And so I was like, what if I just made this into a lifestyle? And I did. And I had the golden handcuffs is what I called it. I was selling real estate, making the kind of money they told me I was supposed to make, living in the place they told me I was supposed to live in, doing all that, but I just wasn't happy, and I didn't like being landlocked. So I made a transition into going into online consulting, and this is about the time that Periscope came out. And so I was, viral, quote unquote, on Periscope, which is a live stream platform in 2016. And I was showing people my different skill sets in marketing, operations. And one day I was showing them how I scaled my real estate business by working with people overseas, how I had one person just manage my contracts, how I had one person manage my showings, how I even built a team with me not even having to be stateside and still get property shown and close deals. And that blew up really, really quick, so that I got known as quote unquote the VA guy, which I hate, by the way. I hate the term VA. I hate all virtual assistants. If you're a virtual assistant right now, step your game up, get better, do better, be better. Yeah. Because for me, I don't like to work with VAs or virtual assistants. In our company, we call them remote professionals. VA is a curse word because a VA is on Fiverr, a VA is on Upwork, and a remote professional is of a different tier. It is of a different skill set. It is of a different specialty. So I surround myself with those kinds of people to support any of my endeavors. And after a while, people were like, how do I get that for me? And for me, it was I've been doing it for 7 years like that. I thought everybody did it, but nobody actually does it. Everybody reads the 4-hour work week. And, my view on the 4-hour work week, which is a fantastic piece of work, is the 400-hour work week, and I'm writing a book on that right now, actually. And it's pretty simple. It's how do you hire the right 10 people to work 40 hours on your behalf so you don't ever got to work, or so you can choose to work on the things or passions that you really like. If you're a workaholic like me, if you love the entrepreneurship, quote unquote, sport, and you love being on the battlefield or on the court of that. So that's kind of how I got to here. I've been living on 5 continents now. This is my 5th one here in Africa. I live about 4 to 6 months a year in Medellin, Colombia, one of my favorite cities in the world. I live in Mexico City, Isla Mujeres, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, about 1 to 3 months a year. I spend my summers in Europe because it's awesome. And I might, squeeze in an Asia tour. I've got a staffing firm. I have an online consulting practice. I still do real estate, specifically short-term rentals on the international market. And I've got a bunch of other passion projects. I've got a video game company, which is really cool. And, having the right human capital around you allows you to have endless possibilities if you so choose. Now, some people don't like that. I like business. I like to go down rabbit holes. I like to experiment. I love the iteration phase of a startup. Some people hate it. I love it because to me, it strengthens my skills across all different areas. And, now I'm blessed to be scaling 2 businesses right now simultaneously, which is my first time doing for myself. It's my first time doing that simultaneously. I typically only scale one at a time. But now that we have sophisticated talent around us, not a VA, more high caliber professionals on the team, we can do that.
Man, I have so many questions, but that's incredible. That is honestly very incredible because that's one of the things that I'm striving for. Is I also hate the term VA, even though it's part of the the term of my company. How I see it is sometimes the things I hate, I want to change, and I want people to recalibrate their brain what the VA is, because you were talking about more from the VA perspective. I look at it from the client perspective. I think clients also disrespect virtual assistants. I think they don't treat them right. I think they underpay them. I think there's a lot of things that this industry needs a lot more leadership. And I think people like you and people like me and a few other people that I know that genuinely care and want to make a difference, I think that we're definitely on the right path. So my question to you is because you were doing the real estate, and then you got into, Periscope, but how did you hire your first VAs? Do you even remember your first hiring experience? What your first VA was like, and where did that come from? Because I'm sure for you it was also a new world when you first did it, right?
Yeah, this was in 2008. And just a quick point, I'm on the flip side, man. I think most entrepreneurs and businesses pay VAs and people offshore. I think they pay them too much because they don't know the going rate for certain activities. Now, if you hire somebody who's at the mid and senior level, they're not going to accept a lowball offer. If you work with people at the entry level, your lowball offer is actually probably a pretty good job for where they're at and their skill set. So I'm on the total flip side because I'm hyper aware. I am legally incorporated in several different countries all around the world. I'm paying unemployment insurance, payroll taxes. I'm hyper dialed in on how much these positions cost at the entry, mid, senior, and executive level all over the world. So we work in Latin America, Caribbean, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Asia. So I'm super dialed in on each of those markets. And so I have a different experience. Now, going back to 2008, I had my first business. It was a spray tan business out in Dallas, Texas, like an airbrush tanning business. And I needed a designer, like a graphic designer. And so I went to, the people I knew in Texas who were designer, and they were like, oh yeah, I want $3,000 for a logo or $7,000 for a logo, which is a fair wage for something like that. Nothing wrong with that. But in my head, I'm like, hey, there might be a way to get this, cost down a little bit. So I ran a contest, and then I'm super old, man. I ran a contest on a message board of people overseas, and there were designers. And I said, hey, I got $100. And then I got thousands. If I told you I got any less than 3,000 iterations of my logo, I'd be lying, man. People were like, please, please, please. And that's when I realized there's thousands of skilled professionals in other markets that $100 is a lot of money to them. But if I took $100 to any designer, even a 16-year-old kid in America, they would laugh at me. They wouldn't even do anything. They would draw whatever and say, here you go. This is what you get for $100. But people overseas would bend over backwards for $100. And I realized, what is the value of money? What actually is arbitrage? And so that really just warped my mind from my very first business that, okay, there's something there. Now, the first actual full-time employee that I had was actually a receptionist, somebody that answered phone calls. So we had a spray tan business, a salon, And so they would call in, book the appointment, get that scheduled. And so what I did is the people that were in that message board, again, this is 2008, there was no Upwork, there was no Fiverr, none of that kind of stuff. Or if there was, I didn't know about it. This was like a legit old school message board back from like 2002 to 2009, 10, when message boards were like really hot. I went to these message boards and I said, hey, I'm hiring a receptionist, and thousands of applications came in. And I'm like, holy crap, most of these people suck. Because it's the truth. In any country, even America, most people suck. I only want to work with like the top 3 to 7%, depending on what I'm hiring, from every country. I don't want to work with everybody.
If that.
Yeah, if that. I mean, that's even a little high, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I eventually, had several people apply. I did the ring around the rosy, and I finally, after maybe about 7 or 8 people, found somebody that actually worked, and they were a godsend, because that person was making like, I think $400 a month, $500 a month, full time, 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, sometimes working a little bit extra. And if I wanted that in America for a receptionist, I was easily going to drop, $1,600, $2,000, $2,500 easily.
Yeah.
And then have to pay payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, benefits, severance package. They could sue me if for whatever reason, and I got to deal with that.
That's amazing. So 2008 was the first time you hired a VA, which was just a crazy time in general, because that's, the crash happened and you were also in real estate. Like there was like so many things going on. And then obviously now you've had a lot of experience in the hiring world. What was the turning point for you? Because you spoke a little bit about it, that you wanted to do this as a passion, as a living. Because was it when people started hitting you up, you're like, man, like, can you help us find someone? Can you help us find someone? Or was there another time where you were like, man, there's a lot of people super talented, maybe I can find them jobs? Like, what was the turning point for you after hiring your first VA that you wanted to go all in on this?
I never offered this. People always were breaking my door down. Hey, we heard you're working with people offshore, like people, and I'd be like, yeah, man, like it's kind of a pain. I don't know, man. Like, they're like, how much can we pay you? And I was like, nothing, man. Like, it's a real pain in the ass to get this stuff done. And so like some people, would throw money at me, and I'd be like, all right, well, for that kind of money, okay, like, yeah, let's go through it. Let's figure it out. And even then it was a pain. But even when I was on Periscope in 2016, live streaming every day, everybody wanted that. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be the quote unquote VA guy where everyone's looking for cheap labor, cheap talent, because you get cheap results. Yeah. And it's really hard to work with them, especially, because what we do now is we implement, we onboard, we train. There's a little bit more sophisticated rollover process. But, back then the people on that platform, Periscope, and the other ones that were following me like on Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, even my own network, they were like, I want cheap talent. And I'm like, you really actually don't. Yes, there's cheap talent there, but there's cheap talent and then there's affordable talent. So I actually didn't want to get this done, but there was so much interest for me to help people that had sophisticated businesses to actually work out. I had to break it down to them and say, yo, if you want cheap talent, go to cheap places. If you want to build this right, because my first quote unquote VA, you call her VA. I don't think she was a VA. She was a professional receptionist from overseas at a doctor's office. She wasn't a VA. She was just working remotely in 2008, where in 2020, everybody started working. But it wasn't like some person who was on the street who didn't have no skills. She had been a receptionist at a busy doctor's office for like 7 years already. She was a remote professional. She was a professional working remotely. And that's a huge distinction that a lot of people totally misunderstand in our industry, that there is a totally different caliber beyond the entry-level VA. And that's why I'm so against the VA. And also, so for employers paying reasonable, fair wages, not overpaying, not doing any of that kind of stuff, because now people get complacent. If you overpay an entry-level person, they're going to chill, man. They ain't got no reason to bust their ass off. They didn't earn it. They got it made, man. So for me, after people were asking me for it, I sat down and I was like, okay, I got to think about this, man. I don't want to be the VA guy. And I already was, man, because our industry is so misconstrued. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I already was the VA guy talking about this, and everybody's like, I want people for $2 an hour and this kind of stuff. So really, my first 2 years, from about 2016 to 2018, was me fighting that and dealing with people that were only looking for cheap labor. At about the time we got connected, I totally switched my messaging because I had 2 years I tried out the cheap labor and I was like, this is a headache. I wanted to drown myself. This is not something I want to do. And so about the time we got connected, I started totally switching my messaging, my positioning, and everything else, where we started getting entry level, affordable talent who was good, but they weren't VAs. They were professionals already working with like AT&T, Apple, Uber, the Fortune 5000. I realized there was a totally different talent pool that we started working on. So in 2018, January 1st, we started Salas Staffing. It'll be our 5-year anniversary in like 2 or 3 months. So, you know, that's awesome right there. But it all started again. Now we had to go from the entry level people, really go through the iteration phase of, okay, how do we properly deploy this person? How do we properly set up the systems, protocols, communication protocols, offboarding protocols, onboarding protocols, client onboarding protocols, project management systems, task management systems. How do we piece all of this together in one ecosystem or universe so that we can scale? So I in my mind, I think of it as scaffolding. Before you can scale, because everybody wants to scale, I'm like, yo, if you had 1,000 new customers tomorrow, you're probably gonna go bankrupt because your payment process is not gonna go through, your deliverables are gonna suck, your employees are gonna quit on you, your talent, your clients, they're gonna ask for refunds, they're gonna leave you bad reviews, and in 6 months, you're never gonna have any new business because you got a bad rep and you might as well like change your identity, change your business, go do something else. Most people can't scale. What most people need to do is scaffold. They need to increase their operational capacities. They need to put some time into their documentation of their protocols, of their workflows, really map out and even strategically look at their business model and think about, like, is what we're doing sustainable for the next level, or is it just a hustle? That's 2 different methods to approach the game. And so that's kind of where we evolved. And it's been a crazy journey, man. Crazy journey.
I love everything you're saying. I almost wish we got connected earlier because everything you're saying right now is what we're going through. You know, we're approaching our 2-year mark, but the first year I wasn't really all in. I was doing this as a side hustle. I was just helping people find the lower entry people. And then since last August, we really went all in. We now, like you said, onboard people. We have a training methods. Like we're really, in order for us to help these remote professionals, like you call them. Funny enough, my other company is called Remote Latinos. In order to help these remote professionals, we have to really make sure that we're finding the right talent, but they're also hungry enough, and we have to find the right companies. You know, I disqualify a lot of people that we work with. I'm sure you do as well. That if people just want to hire because they're lazy. That's what I've noticed. They want to hire. A lot of people hire because they don't want to do the job. Which makes sense. Some jobs don't want to be done, but they wouldn't even do it in the first place. They would like, I don't want to do this ever. Like I never want to do this. And then because they never want to do it, they don't have the systems in place. They don't have the scripts. They don't know where to start. So they think they're going to hire someone and then it's just going to solve all their issues. So what we've noticed is we want to help the client. We want to give them everything they need. And we want to make sure that they are ready to hire and give someone the proper directions and proper tools to really level from there. Coming up on the 5-year anniversary, do you have like a number? Do you have like around the number you've helped hire? Like, is there a number that you got to? You guys know if you had to guess where you're at?
So right now, we actively employ about 520 people with our clients that they're active right now.
A month?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on a daily basis. Yes.
Amazing. And is your offer where your clients pay you and then you pay the hirings?
Yeah. So we are what's called.
You guys take a cut of that?
We are what's called the professional employer of record. When you start to attract mid and senior level talent, think about it. These people want to get approved for loans, for houses, cars, credit cards. They need like an actual paycheck. If they're showing like a PayPal stub, they can't get approved for anything. I'm talking about people with like degrees, a Lean Six Sigma project manager, a PMP certified project manager. That person wants to live in a certain neighborhood. They cannot show PayPal stubs or Western Union stubs or Remitly stubs or Wise stubs. They need a freaking paycheck, man. They need to get approved for loans. And so we are the professional employer of record in the countries that we work with that allow us to attract the senior level talent, and we charge a recruiting fee, and we also have an onboarding fee depending on the engagement. We have onboarding engagements of 3 6, and 12 months per position, where we actually go in and make sure that that position is successful.
I love that. And what do you see in the space? Because you're kind of, I don't want to say nodding your head off or sideways. Do you have like a specific type of clientele that you help? Is there like a type of niche you're doing? Like why should someone hire from Frank Salas?
I guess just to clarify, you're asking like the kinds of companies we typically work with?
Yeah, like mostly like your ideal clientele. And what do you, as I was explaining what my reasoning for like what some of the things that we do, I saw, because I love debating with people in a sense, and I love learning from people that have, dude, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, so I'm a sponge, and I want to learn, and I genuinely want to help people and companies. So I'd love to hear your perspective. Like, do you think that it is more on the VA's fault? Is it more on the clientele fault? And then we'll get into more of the clients you're looking for. But like, what type of clientele do you normally work with? Yeah.
So I see what you're talking about. Yeah. So earlier you were talking about how clients don't really have their systems in place. And so for me, in my universe that I'm in every single day, in my little rabbit hole that I've gone down the last 15 years of living in different countries all over the world and hiring and onboarding, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think that makes sense. I think that most employers, if they had the skills to build systems and processes, they would have done it. But most entrepreneurs are visionary. They can see, they're very strategic. They know how to manipulate the game to where it could happen, but they don't have the follow through. And so having somebody like us to come in and help them build those systems and processes, it's actually a much needed service to the marketplace. I can't do it all. I'm on a wait list right now, man. I can't go out there and like, I'm outsourced to the max, man. Like, I'm living the 400-hour work week. I'm writing a book called the 400-hour work week, and I'm on a wait list because I have an operational capacity. Every business that has ever existed, even Coca-Cola right now, Nike, these guys all have an operational capacity, friction points, bottlenecks in their operations. So for me, I think it's an opportunity that they don't have that. And I view it as an, of course that business owner doesn't have that there because they're ignorant, and ignorance not a bad thing. It just means it's not there. It's not on your field of radar, and it shouldn't be, because an entrepreneur's value is staying at the strategic and visionary level and hiring people like you and I to bring on teams, to build structure, to build processes so that they can stay at the visionary and strategic level and make more change. Because I truly believe that entrepreneurs, they make the most change. We see things that are not there, and then we go out and take action to get it there. And if you and I can build enough teams, hire enough people, put them in enough companies, then the world's going to change, because we work with small and medium-sized businesses. I don't know about you, but I don't work with Coke. I don't work with Pepsi. I steal talent from there, and I put them in small businesses, all, from, America, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. That's what I do. And those people in their companies, they disrupt their marketplace, and they're doing it at a less expensive rate, more affordable rate with more profit margin, so they can reinvest more into their companies and make more change. So I guess you're very perceptive when you picked up on that. That was a slight, I guess micro expression is what they call it, and you picked up on that. So shout out to you picking up on that all the way across the world there. But to answer your question, my ideal client is anybody who is in hyper growth. If you're a business in hyper growth and you want to scale your business and understand that that's not an overnight process, and you're willing to put the work in or have the patience to do what you and I do, which is build teams, train talent, and develop human capital. What is a company? What is a business? It's just a group of people. And if you're patient enough to grow that family, grow that tribe, then I'd love to get into working with somebody. But if someone's like not a good leader, not a good communicator, or if they're like, hey, I got this small business and I don't want to take it anywhere. It's like, well, then why are you talking to me? I'm the guy that helps your business blow up, man. Keep it small.
Let me ask you this. What are the bottlenecks you see in today's day and age with businesses when it comes to hiring, recruiting, growing? Do you think it's more they try to do it on their own? Do you think they work with the wrong recruiting companies? Do you think there's not enough training? Like, what do you see specifically in our industry? What is the bottleneck for these businesses when it comes to specifically, again, hiring, recruiting, training, retaining their team?
Well, I always say that most companies only have 1 to 3 things that they actually do to the marketplace that adds value, that actually puts money in their pocket. If you're a marketing agency, if you're a car dealership, if you're a consultant, when you recruit, it doesn't make any money for you. When you put out a job post, when you're screening applications, when you're going on interviews, it doesn't make you any money. That is not one of your revenue generating activities, your RGA. Because you're aware of that, then it makes sense to hire a company like ours who specialize on those kinds of things so they can handle that on your behalf so that you can focus on the 1 to 3 things: selling cars, cutting hair, whatever it is that you do, spray tanning people, whatever it is that you do, focus on that because that's going to bring you money. If you take your eyes off the 1 to 3 things that you do to go recruit, which is probably not in your zone of genius, you probably don't like it, you know you're going to run into underqualified talent who's just reaching and applying for whatever, you know that there's a whole process. Like you and I know, like for every position that's out there, we typically go through a minimum 100 candidates. Of those 100, maybe like 7 are good. And of those, maybe 3 even finish the application. And of those, maybe 1 of them gets hired by somebody else because they're already good enough and got an offer somewhere. So there's really like 2 candidates that you're going to be looking for out of that. That's like the numbers game on the recruiting side. Why, oh, why would a business that sells cars go through all that time and energy investment where they could just take some money, hire companies like you and I to go in there and get that done? That same car dealership doesn't clean their own office. They hire a cleaning company. That's outsourcing. Doesn't just mean hiring people overseas. It just means work with third-party vendors, work with strategic partners. And that's what people do when they engage with recruiters. On our side, where I think the biggest gap is, and what's brought us over at our firm a lot of success, is most recruiting firms, whether it's offshore, onshore, they say, hey, here's your talent, good luck, see you later. We are actually fully responsible for the full cycle recruiting, the application process, the screening process. We have a mandatory training process where we train them to our remote standards internally. And then we have an onboarding process where we deploy them to the customer and we're inside of their internal communication channels. We're having weekly KPI meetings with them. They have a daily checklist, a weekly checklist, a quarterly checklist, a monthly checklist. We have a KPI scorecard so they know the actual metrics that they're doing. We do a monthly performance review with the talent, with the employer, with us to make sure that that person is hitting their numbers, or we get them out because we have a lifetime guarantee. If that person's not working, you don't like them, you don't drive with them, get them out the game. Your company is too valuable to have somebody who's an underperformer. And so that's where I feel on the recruiting side is a big gap, and it's a big commitment. Dude, I just gave you my whole business model because it's really hard to pull off. It's really hard to pull off, man. Not many people are committed to that. And so we are, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes, man. I can't tell you how many times I've been 9 months, 10 months, 11 months with somebody in an engagement, and they fall off, and we got to do it all over again. It's the worst, but I'd rather do it then than 3 years later when that person messes up a big deal for one of our customers, or they just become a cancer and lower the standards for the organization. I'd rather have the opposite than that world become a reality.
I love it, man. It's been super valuable. This has been one of the, at least for me, from the industry I'm in, and a lot of my clients are gonna get a ton of value from this, and I can't wait to spread this podcast out. So one of the questions I had for you was, you mentioned the recruiting process, the hiring, and all that stuff. What do you think is the deciding factors, I should say, when it comes to retaining team members? Because a lot of people flex their hiring numbers, including myself, because I do love hiring people, but they don't flex their retaining numbers. Because who cares if you hire someone and they're with you for, like you said, 2-3 months, and then they leave, and then you have a lifetime guarantee, or they have a pay a placement guarantee. What makes someone stay with a company for a long time, both from the candidate perspective and from the client perspective?
In our business, man, we deal with humans, and humans have thousands, if not millions, of different variables. There's all kinds of interpersonal relationships that involve. There's just so much going on. Human capital is some of the most, it's just the biggest variable, man. Humans just is the biggest variables in all things, which I'm really excited about these robots coming out, because I'm like, man, less people to deal with. That's amazing. Sign me up. I'm just programmed to do their job. I don't have to call them and coach them and say, hey, you're going to do a good job today. That's really, really tough. Not a lot of people are like that. So to answer your question, when it comes to retaining people, one of my favorite books is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. One of my favorite principles of that book, of The 7 Habits, is to begin with the end in mind. For every one of our people that we bring in, I personally walk them through what it's like to have success with us. And then I ask them, hey, are you here for a short term? Are you here for a midterm? Or are you here for the long term? What does that mean to you? What does midterm look for you? What does long-term mean for you? What does your career look like? I extract their goals from each employee, and I figure out, what do you guys actually want? Like, what do you want? Because over at our firm, we have leadership training, we train graphic designers, we have project management training, we have copywriting training, we have video editing training, whatever, we have programming training, whatever kind of training you want, we have. And I say, whatever career you're looking for, we have that. We even have leadership training inside of our organization where we can teach you all these highly advanced principles in a distilled, concentrated version that you can easily understand, because maybe you're not an English speaker. So I tell them, like, we literally have thousands of career paths for you, but what do you want? Doesn't matter what I offer. Doesn't matter what I want. Like, what do you want? When you understand what they want, then you can set up a game for them within your company or your client's company so that they can be successful. That is the key to employee retainment. And guess what, man? People are people. You can't force anybody to do anything. The minute somebody even says, oh, I'm thinking about quitting, I cut them a severance package and say, see you later, get out of my life. I don't need that maybe energy around me, because I'm only working with people that are 100% committed.
All in or all out.
That's it.
I love it. I love Frank. So to close it out, you've been in the space for many years, a lot of experience, hired thousands and thousands of people. You're one of the people that literally inspired me. I don't know how many people you talk to on a regular basis that started their own VA placement agency. I think a lot of them probably started and failed. You probably have a few clients that did start and they're succeeding, but indirectly, you affected me in wanting to start this and actually do a pretty damn good job. We've hired over closing in 400 people in the last 2 years, which is pretty awesome. And the goal for us is to do it 10,000 times. And I was asked why 10,000, because I feel like the 10,000 hour mark makes you a master. So in my head, I'm like, until I hit 10,000 hirings that actually stay, and this is going to take many years for me. That's what's going to make me a master in this world. So where do you see this industry is heading towards? What do you see like the next couple of years, the future? We got the metaverse coming up, and there's crypto, and there's all this crazy stuff. Obviously, I'm not expecting you to predict the future, but from what you've seen from 2008 when you first started to 2018 when you really took this hardcore to now to we're entering 2023 now. Where do you see the foreseeable future, the next few years, specifically with the industry? Where is it heading?
At the end of the day, whatever you do, it requires human capital. The deal is this, man. The human capital in the top 5 marketplace, that's the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Without a doubt, those 5 markets, I guarantee you, play this back whenever you watch this, they're going to go up. I guarantee you the minimum wage is going to go up, their expectations going to go up, and their work ethic is going to go down.
Man, this guy made me realize that there's one thing that we're missing in our business. I mean, more than one, and I'm going to work on it, and that is the training department. Where although we're finding trained people off the bat, how much better would it be if we personally trained a lot of them on the graphic design, on the video editing, on the appointment setting, on call center, like whatever the case is. I think it'll not only increase our value, but it would increase the lifetime of our clients, lifetime retention of our clients. So that was one of the best episodes we've shot to date. But man, I really can't thank him enough because it was just cool to connect with him. I was telling him earlier that there are only a few people in this industry that I truly believe that I truly look up to. There's a lot of people I listen to, but there's only a few people that I really hear. And he's one of the people that I'm listening to. I'm like, man, I want to pick this guy's brain. Maybe I can hire him as a coach or something to help me out, because it is impossible for him to help everybody. And him giving me the sauce just on here is everything I needed. So guys, if you listened this far, thank you so much for tuning in. Episode 17, Hire Fire. We'll be back very, very soon. Peace.